In the year 53 BC, two of the greatest empires the ancient world had ever seen met in one of the most significant battles in military history. The Roman Empire, at the height of its expansion, and the Parthian Empire, one of the few capable of opposing Roman power in the East. The Battle of Carrhae not only marked the defeat of one of Rome's wealthiest and most powerful men, Marcus Licinius Crassus, but also the beginning of a long period of conflict between these two powers. The context of this battle is crucial for understanding the reasons that led Crassus to pursue a military campaign in the East and how he underestimated both his opponent and the difficulties of the terrain. On the other side, the Parthian leadership showcased remarkable strategic skill, outmaneuvering a numerically superior Roman army that was considered invincible. Marcus Licinius Crassus was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, famous for his boundless ambition. A member of the first triumvirate alongside Julius Caesar and Pompey, he had already amassed great wealth through business ventures, including real estate speculation in Rome and the controversial practice of rescuing burning buildings. He was extremely influential, but his political power still lagged behind that of his triumvirate partners. Caesar, at the time, was at the height of his conquests in Gaul, and Pompey had already secured several military victories that granted him great prestige. Crasso, por outro lado, ansiava por uma vitória militar que pudesse rivalizar com as de seus colegas. Seu desejo de obter uma vitória gloriosa o levou a buscar um alvo mais distante, o Império Parta. Acreditava que uma vitória sobre esse império não apenas aumentaria sua glória e seu prestígio, mas também lhe renderia terras e riquezas inimagináveis. The Parthian Empire, on the other hand, was not a military force to be underestimated. Founded after the fall of the Seleucid Empire, the Parthians ruled over a vast area that included Persia and Mesopotamia. Although they were often viewed by the Romans as barbarians from the east, the reality was quite different. The Parthians had a well-trained army and a unique military tactic based on the mobility of their cavalry and the use of mounted archers. This strategy allowed them to dominate battles in open terrain, where mobility was crucial. In 53 BC, Crassus assembled an army estimated at around 40,000 men, composed primarily of Roman legionaries, along with cavalry and auxiliaries. Crassus's plan was simple: invade Mesopotamia, defeat the Parthians, and claim control of vast lands that would provide him with a power base in the east. Crassus's plan, however, had problems from the very beginning. First, he lacked significant military experience in major campaigns, and his decisions were often driven by arrogance. Additionally, he ignored the advice of his generals and underestimated the capabilities of the Parthians. Finally, he chose a direct route through the Mesopotamian desert, believing he could quickly reach and defeat the Parthian army. On the Parthian side, the commander Surena was well prepared. Although the Parthian king, Orodes II, had initially underestimated Crassus, Surena, one of the most skilled generals of his time, knew he could not underestimate Roman power. He devised a plan to use the desert terrain to his advantage, exploiting the mobility of his troops and the Romans' vulnerability to heat and thirst. The Parthian army was smaller but highly mobile, composed mainly of mounted archers and heavily armored cavalrymen, known as cataphracts. This lethal combination of long-range attacks and close combat would be the key to their victory. Crassus's journey through the desert was already a prelude to the problems that lay ahead. The Roman troops were unprepared for the harsh, arid climate, and as they advanced, morale dwindled. Spy reports suggested that the Parthian army was weak and scattered, further boosting Crassus's confidence. However, these reports were either wrong or manipulated. What Crassus encountered near Carrhae was a Parthian army fully prepared for battle, led by Surena. The battle began with the Parthians employing their primary advantage, mobility. The Parthian mounted archers surrounded the Roman legions and unleashed a barrage of arrows. The Roman legions, trained for close combat and more stable terrain, were unable to reach the mounted archers, who fired their arrows with deadly accuracy and quickly retreated before the Romans could counterattack. The Romans formed their famous tortoise formation, in which soldiers grouped together with shields overhead and on the sides, creating a defensive barrier. This formation was extremely effective against conventional attacks, but against the relentless assault of the Parthian mounted archers, it provided little protection. Parthian arrows pierced through the gaps and struck the soldiers. Often poisoned, the Parthian arrows wreaked havoc on the Roman ranks, while the Parthians kept a safe distance. Crassus, realizing that his troops were being slowly decimated, attempted to launch his cavalry against the Parthians. However, the Roman cavalry was vastly inferior to the Parthian cavalry, especially the cataphracts, who were armored from head to toe, along with their horses. Crassus's attempt at an offensive was easily repelled, and the Romans began to realize they were caught in a deadly trap. Surena then executed a masterstroke, the feigned retreat. He ordered his troops to withdraw, as if fleeing the battlefield. Crassus, desperate for a victory, fell into the trap. He commanded his troops to advance, believing he could turn the tide of the battle. However, as soon as the Romans moved forward, the Parthians resumed their attack, surrounding the Romans and restarting the rain of arrows. By this point, the Romans were in complete disarray. Their formations were broken, morale was shattered, and they were surrounded by an enemy that mastered both the terrain and the style of combat. Crassus attempted to organize a retreat, but it was too late. The Roman army had been decimated. Of the 40,000 Roman soldiers who marched into battle, only about 10,000 survived. Most were either captured or killed. Crassus, seeing that there was no longer any hope for victory, attempted to negotiate with Surena. However, during the negotiations, he was killed. According to some sources, humiliated with molten gold poured into his mouth, symbolizing his greed. Other accounts suggest he was simply assassinated, sealing the fate of his army and his reputation. The defeat at Carrhae was one of the greatest military disasters in Roman history. The reputation of Roman legions as invincible was shattered, and the defeat had far-reaching political consequences. The triumvirate of Crassus, Pompey, and Caesar collapsed. With Crassus's death, Pompey and Caesar would eventually come into conflict, leading to Caesar's rise as dictator and the eventual fall of the Roman Republic. On the Parthian side, the victory consolidated the power of Orodes II and ensured that the Parthians maintained control of Mesopotamia and the surrounding areas for many years. The battle also cemented Surena's reputation as one of the greatest strategists of his time. Although he was executed by King Orodes II shortly thereafter, possibly due to jealousy over his rising popularity. The Battle of Carrhae is a classic example of how underestimating the enemy and disregarding the terrain can lead to defeat, even for a powerful army like that of Rome. Surena's brilliant strategy, combined with Crassus's arrogance and inexperience, resulted in one of the most humiliating defeats in Roman history. But the repercussions of this battle extended beyond the battlefield. Carrhae marked the beginning of a prolonged conflict between Rome and the Parthian Empire, which would continue for centuries. Although Rome eventually managed to achieve partial victories against the Parthians, they were never able to fully conquer Parthian territory, and the border between the two empires remained a constant zone of tension. The story of the Battle of Carrhae also serves as a lesson in leadership. Crassus, driven by personal glory and wealth, ignored the advice of his more experienced subordinates and underestimated an opponent clearly prepared for combat. Surena, on the other hand, demonstrated the importance of strategy and knowledge of the terrain. By using tactics that exploited the weaknesses of the Roman army, he turned a potential numerical disadvantage into a decisive victory. The immediate consequences of the battle included the weakening of the Roman triumvirate. With Crassus's death, the balance of power in Rome became destabilized, leading to an escalating rivalry between Julius Caesar and Pompey. This eventually culminated in a civil war, which would bring about the fall of the Roman Republic and the establishment of the empire under Caesar's rule. On the Parthian side, the victory at Carrhae reinforced the Parthian Empire's position as one of the most formidable powers in the Middle East. Although they did not expand significantly beyond their traditional borders, the Parthians consolidated their control over Mesopotamia and successfully kept the Romans at bay for several decades. They also managed to capture a large number of Roman soldiers, some of whom, according to reports, were either used as prisoners or even integrated into Parthian forces. The defeat also marked a shift in how Rome approached its enemies in the east. Subsequent battles against the Parthians were fought with greater caution and a better understanding of enemy tactics. Rome would learn from its mistakes and eventually achieve some victories over the Parthians in future battles, but it would never fully conquer Parthian territory. The Battle of Carrhae, however, remains one of the most humiliating episodes in Roman history, not only because of the military defeat, but also due to the death of Crassus, one of Rome's wealthiest and most powerful men. The defeat demonstrated that, despite their strength, even the most powerful armies could be overcome by a well-prepared and cunning enemy, especially in unfamiliar terrain. And thus, the Battle of Carrhae stands as a testament to the failures of unchecked ambition, the underestimation of one's opponent, and the critical importance of strategy in times of war. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more epic stories from the past. Leave a like and let us know in the comments, which other ancient battle would you like to see featured here? See you next time.